I was hiding my drinking, and I thought I was hiding it. And I actually was hiding. I hid it pretty good for a long time. But when you think, and as emergency responders, I know a lot of people out there are like me, when they're trying to hide, when they know they're drinking too much and they're trying to hide that overindulgence, people do see it. Your family does recognize it. And even though they may not say something, they do see it. So you're really not fooling people. I wasn't fooling people like I thought I was.
Stay tuned. Coming up, it's a flashback to episode 228 and part two of my two-part interview with Perry Hall, a firefighter who shared his story of a horrific near-miss event that changed his life forever. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire.
Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer. That means no middleman. You work directly with the good folks right at their factory in Laverne, Minnesota. If you want to see just how easy it is to design your own Midwest Fire truck, check out the Create a Spec tool on their website. To get started, go to MidwestFire.com and click on the Create a Spec tab at the top of the homepage.
Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 337. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by our new online training platform, Gasaway Virtual Training. We now have 33 online training programs for your members. Some of these programs are live events presented virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. All right, let's jump into our feature segment, a flashback to episode 228 and part two of my two-part interview with Perry Hall, a firefighter who shares a story of a horrific near-miss event and the life-changing impact that it has had on him.
It was a very bad situation, and for somebody without the experience, it could have been very detrimental to them.
Sure.
Experience and training.
So, you get some treatment, and you're back to work. A week later, they do a debrief, talk about lessons learned, and you're back on the job. So, where does it go from here?
So yeah, I went to light duty, about a week after the event. I was out a couple more, 2-3 more weeks. I didn't have any. No thought of any problems or issues or anything stemming from it. Things was back as normal. Matter of fact, the first day I was back to the truck, I went and helped burn a house that morning, and it was, I had some friends that was asking me, how you think you're going to, it's the first time I've been in an air pack or in a fire environment since that day. I'm not going to, it did, it was different that first time, I guess, being in that heated environment again. But it didn't deter me. So things went on as normal at work. So I thought. So back to riding calls, doing what I love to do. And then things started snowballing from there. Noticing a lot of things. Just a lot of changes in my personal life, I guess, from there.
Are you noticing them as they happen, or it's only after the fact that you notice them?
Yeah, it's only after the fact. So looking back, I see that I was having difficulty sleeping. I had disassociated myself with everyone, with the exception of my children. I was divorced at the time. It was me and my son and daughter, and that are the only two people that I wanted to be with and wanted to be around. Of course, I wasn't mean or hateful or anybody to the guys at work, but they do mention now that they noticed that I was spending more time in my room, which is not like me. I'm usually out and about and doing everything with them. Yeah, I was having flashbacks or nightmares, thinking about things. I've always had depression my entire life, but I was having a lot more. I was a lot deeply depressed. And then my drinking had become more so. And with my drinking, it never happened at work, or it never happened at Firehouse and Volunteer or anything else. But if I was at home, I was drinking.
Mm-hmm. And so this is all of these things are accumulating. So dissociation, trouble sleeping, flashbacks, nightmares, depression, drinking.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't seem to be on a good trajectory here. So keep us going on this. What's happening? What happens in this?
Yeah. So, and I'd also become very emotional about things. I never second guessed myself when I was on the fire truck. You know, when you're on the fire truck in this job, or you're in the ambulance or in the police car, you're in your element. That's what you do. That's what you love to do. And I never had any, I was operating to my fullest in them times. When I was at home was my problem. So when I left the firehouse, I was by myself, except for when I had my children, which it was a 50-50 deal with my ex-wife. So there was a lot of times I was by myself. Which is not a good combination for emergency responders in certain situations. So I was drinking very heavily, very, very depressed. And I had gotten to a point that, and now looking back at that and all the education and the treatment I've had, I was using that alcohol to push those feelings and emotions and stuff farther and farther down to where, I didn't have to deal with them. So I thought, being pushed down.
So is this impacting your work at all? Are you missing work, or coming in hungover, or is it affecting your work judgment or anything like that you could, looking back? I mean, at the moment, I would expect that you would not have seen it then, but looking back, wasn't?
Yeah, no, it never really, the guys at work didn't notice. The only thing they really noticed anything about was, like I said, I'd spend more time in my room. But no, I didn't come in hungover. I wasn't calling out. Everything stayed in the time off. I didn't bring it. Obviously, it was coming to work with me, not the alcohol, but the feelings and emotions and all that. But I was in my element, on that fire truck. That's what I love to do. With my crew, I love my crew. They were my second family. And so, yeah, it was I almost in a way when I was at work, that was my good time, I guess, if that makes sense, because you're in your element. You're not by yourself.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Your mind's not running. Your mind's thinking about fire stuff, and it's not thinking about, personal issues.
What's your shift like? Is it 24/48, or how does the shift run?
There at Greensboro, it was 24/48, and then here at High Point they do the modified. But 24/48 there.
Okay, so you had 48 off to go into your state of all of these things occurring to you.
Sure.
All right. So how long do you stay on this track?
Yeah, so I was in that for a good while, and then
what's a good while? We talking weeks or months?
Well, within that, it was kind of hit and go. So that worked up to May 27th, where I was by myself. I was excluded to myself during all this time, but I'd got to the point where I was lonely too, meaning that I didn't have my kids. They were with their mother at the time during that 2 days. And I had become very depressed, and I was reached out to a friend, and I'd been drinking, and I made a very alcohol-induced, depressed, not myself decision to get in a vehicle and drive to my friend's house, because I was really hitting the bottom of my barrel there. So when I did that, heading to my friend's house, I was eventually pulled over and charged with a DWI that evening. Law enforcement I remember the whole thing. It wasn't like I was blacked out. I never really drank myself anytime to black out stage. But I drank very heavily, and I think the reason I didn't get to blackout stage is because my body had become so accustomed to it. But I was pulled over and I was charged. The law enforcement with that agency in that county was very respectful and very nice. They did all they could do to help me. They really did. And I was released on a written promise to appear later on that evening.
Okay. And is that a wake-up call, or what happens next?
It was. I think I really started spiraling after that. So I got to the point after that to where I would spend time on end on the couch and do nothing. I really got out of that. It was one of the times that I was able to become sober for a little bit until it grabbed hold of me again. But I didn't recognize all this that had been bottling up, and now it was all presented in front of me. It was laying right there in front of me. So I didn't write all these feelings and emotions that was bottled up. So I was trying to process all this. It was a lot to take in. And I realized that I was in a very bad place, very distressed. So I reached out to Employee Assistance Program, actually, to try and get some help.
A lot of times when people are in this situation, they're not so conscientious of the fact that they've reached that point, and they don't reach out.
Yeah.
They're in the, I don't know, denial or just blind to it.
And I guess where I'd been in denial in the past, like where they tried to do interventions with me, I'd already kind of been through that road where I was somewhat in denial. So when this event occurred, I guess I'd already been down that path. So I knew I was to the bottom of the barrel.
Okay. So you reach out to EAP and they get you all fixed up?
Well, so I reach out to them. I go to them. I'd actually utilized them a couple times in the past over the years. And I reached out to them. I go in and speak with them and tell the whole story of what all had transpired. And so they listen to it and they say, well, these are all natural feelings, natural things that occur. And you just give it a little time and it'll pass. So that's kind of what I was left with the EAP. So with them, they're very educated doctors, very good at what they do. However, within the organization, if that EAP doctor or therapist is not trained or work with emergency responders, it's a totally different atmosphere, it's a totally different thing. And that's what I came up against there.
So you realize that they, as skilled as they are, didn't have the tools to help you.
Absolutely. Because, and looking at it now and thinking back, I'm sitting here telling this doctor all these things about being trapped in it. And I'm sure to them, they can't even imagine or compare to that. They don't, and I get that. I do. I imagine that's like, being told how somebody's been shot at war or something. Unless you can put yourself in that situation or you can relate to those individuals, your hands are kind of tied.
Mm-hmm.
So I seen from that point that where I knew that there was something wrong with me. I knew I needed help. And one thing I don't think I've mentioned, prior to 2014, when I started in the mid-90s, I come on with Greensboro in 2000, but when I started in the fire service as a volunteer, mid to late 90s, up until 2014, I had no education in mental health, well-being. Um, we didn't know anything. All we knew about was the EAP. That was it. So I didn't know where to turn or what to do. I had no idea. I knew, and I talked with who I needed to talk with within the department, but I left it at that with the department because I didn't want, in a way I was trying to keep things quiet, which is what a lot of times emergency responders do for whatever reason it may be, reputation, promotion, career, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked around and I found there in town, a outpatient treatment facility, 40 hours outpatient. I went to an outpatient treatment facility and I was put in a program of 40 hours outpatient and was diagnosed there with post-traumatic stress. And I went through that program with positive outcomes. Was still alcohol free at this point.
Okay. So this was a local program in the Greensboro area?
Yes, in the Greensboro area. Uh-huh.
Okay. So it worked and it was helpful for you.
It was. And I thought, again, not having any education or I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to get help and it worked. But then after that, I started taking a lot of classes, emergency responder related, like critical incident stress, became CISM certified, suicide prevention, critical incident training, list goes on. And through going through all of these, I found that I still needed much help. And with this, I also had, again, thinking that I could handle it, I had started drinking some again. And not at work or anything, but back at home. And I had approached the problem, but not knowing what I needed to do. The problem was still there, unresolved. If that makes sense.
So when you're taking these classes on critical incident stress management and stuff, is that to learn more about your situation or to be a person to help others?
I was trying, I thought that I was better or well, I guess you should say. And I was actually taking them to try and help others. Yeah.
So did you feel any sense of I don't know what the word would be, guilt maybe, that you're out there trying to help others, but you know that you're not exactly where you need to be yourself? Is this all starting to come to light?
Yeah.
That you see, I'm trying to help these people, and when I go home and I look in the mirror, I see this person who probably needs as much help as those I'm trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had relation. I could relate to some of the calls we were going on, for example, with the post-traumatic stress and depression and stuff like that, it's a termed mental illness. Well, and I use these in my classes that I do when we're dispatched on a psychiatric call or a suicide attempt or something. The first thing that goes in an emergency responder's mind is, well, these people are crazy. Well, I'm actually in that boat now. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, they're talking about these folks. So the stigma is so big. The stigma and the terminology. I think the terminology really hurts. I don't like the word mental illness or mental health because I think that scares people, especially emergency responders.
Did you feel any sense of I don't know what the word would be, guilt maybe, that you're out there trying to help others, but you know that you're not exactly where you need to be yourself? Is this all starting to come to light? Yeah. That you see, I'm trying to help these people, and when I go home and I look in the mirror, I see this person who probably needs as much help as those I'm trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had relation. I could relate to some of the calls we were going on, for example, with the post-traumatic stress and depression and stuff like that, it's a termed mental illness. Well, and I use these in my classes that I do when we're dispatched on a psychiatric call or a suicide attempt or something. the first thing that goes in emergency responders' mind is, well, these people are crazy. Well, I'm actually in that boat now. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, they're talking about these folks. So the stigma is so big. The stigma and the terminology. I think the terminology really hurts. I don't like the word mental illness or mental health, because I think that scares people, especially emergency responders. So,
is there a better term?
I try to use mental wellness, or I really don't know what the right term is. I think the mental health in emergency services, we so much relate that to the mental health we go and deal with in the field, which is the same, but they relate that to crazy, psychological, all that comes into play, and I think that scares people. And it don't scare me, but I don't like the terminology of it. The mental well-being is what I try to use.
Okay.
So yeah, I had gotten to this point, and I was doing the best I could for my children. I will say too, at this point, and in the past, but at this point, I was hiding my drinking, and I thought I was hiding it. And I actually was hiding. I hid it pretty good for a long time. But when you think, and as emergency responders, I know a lot of people out there are like me, when they're trying to hide, when they know they're drinking too much and they're trying to hide that overindulgence, people do see it. Your family does recognize it. And even though they may not say something, they do see it. So you're really not fooling people. I wasn't fooling people like I thought I was.
Mm-hmm. So you're back to drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Still not quite where you are managing your post-traumatic stress. Where does it go from here?
Yeah, so I was managing it. And through all this, I could see that the 40-hour program that I went through, again, it was good. It was good, but it didn't hit any of the emergency responder attributes that goes along with the jobs. Kind of like the EAP. It's totally different. Emergency responders are a different breed. So I knew I needed something. I knew I needed some extra help that I wasn't getting. And I actually searched for months and months for some type of treatment facility and for emergency responders, or something that would work for me. And there's a couple of things that were out there. I actually got accepted into one out on the East Coast, Florida, I believe it was. And then I found this other one, On-Site Academy in Westminster, Massachusetts. And they deal only with first responders and military. They deal nothing with the public. They are all post, or some are still emergency responders. It is a residential program, so I got accepted there. They don't deal with insurance because a lot of places insurance is just a problem, but they don't turn anybody away. So they worry about payment later. If you need help, you come up there. So it's for post-traumatic stress, substance abuse, anything like that they handle. So I was accepted into there. Prior into doing that, though, I had gotten to a point where I was so depressed. I was laying on the couch. I even went through a little lull. I wasn't drinking. All I did was lay on the couch. I had no energy. I did stuff with my children, and when I had my children, that's what I love to do. But outside of that, I did nothing. I had become so depressed. Now, I will say, thankfully, I never was suicidal. Suicide never crossed my mind. I don't know why it didn't, but I'm glad it didn't. I had got to where I was just laying there, and it had gotten to the point where I eventually actually resigned from my dream job as a younger age of Greensboro Fire Department, and I separated with the department. And then I got to where I just laid on the couch for hours and hours. And at this time too is when I met my wife now, that I'm very blessed with, that I really believe the good Lord sent to me in my biggest time of need there. Without her, truly without her and my family and my children and the good Lord, I don't know where I'd be today. So that's kind of up to the point that I was before I went to treatment.
Okay, so you found this place on-site academy in Westminster, Mass,
Mm-hmm.
and you contacted them, and they agreed to take you on?
They did, yeah. So the way they work, you contact them, you speak with somebody, and then they do a intake on the phone. They like to do it in person, but if you don't live in the area there, you do it on the line. So they've had people from the southeast before. They've came there, so we did all the intake stuff. They took me right on. I set up a day to come up, which wasn't but I think a couple weeks later from the intake, and I set up my flights. I had somebody there to pick me up out of Boston and take me to it was out in the rural area, very pretty. I was very, very nervous, and it was actually one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was to leave my family. It was very, very difficult.
How long was this program going to last? Did you have any idea when you went there?
No. So they give recommendation, and then, but they don't make anybody leave. So for example, somebody may work through the program and work through everything there, but may have some concerns, don't think they could stay clean or sober if they went home and was around a certain family member. So they allow them to stay as long as they need, which is it's a very awesome thing.
Now, the first time your firefighter buddies tried to get you some help,
Mm-hmm.
your concern about being away from your family caused you to deny their offering to get you some assistance. So what changed here that you are now willing to leave your family? Had you reached the dire straits, so to speak?
Yeah, I think I knew that if something didn't give, if I didn't give, or if something didn't change itself, either I was going to end up dead, or I was going to do something to the effects I was going to end up in jail or whatever. I was to the dead end where something had to absolutely give. And I truly didn't know what the future was going to hold for me. I was to the bottom. When I left Greensboro, and I actually left the volunteer organizations, I got totally out. And I thought hard and long of not going back. I had gotten to that point of despair, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they agree to take you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I want to ask you any details about, or that you would want to talk about any details about how they helped you. So I'll leave that open-ended and have you share as much or as little as you would
Sure.
as you would want to.
Yeah, so this was really the first time that, other than the classes I had been taking, prior to on the SISM and suicide prevention and stuff, that I really was shown the signs and symptoms of certain things, how emergency responders were different from the public was in there. So that we did a lot of sessions on really making you know that it's okay not to be okay, that you're having a normal reaction to an abnormal event or accumulation of events. You know, what we see and what we do in all aspects of emergency services and military is not normal. The general public cannot fathom what somebody may see in a given day, or even before lunch one day. So we did a lot of sessions on those things, and we wrote up a plan too for ourselves of, this is with their assistance. This is where we are now. This is what we can do to help ourselves, and this is where we want to be in the future. So they also work depending on, everybody did it together. They did the NA there, which it goes hand in hand with Alcoholics Anonymous. So you did your AA or your NA while you were there. They had the meetings in there where people came in, past members of the group. They did group discussions, anger management, family developmental skills. They also did group cooking, so it was a lot like the firehouse. So you cooked as a group. You still could have your cell phone, which was very, very important to me. That was why some reasons I didn't go to some places, because the one that I didn't go to, that my coworkers was trying to get me to, I couldn't have contact with my family, and I had to have contact with my children. It's hard enough for me to leave, but if I couldn't have contact, I wouldn't have went. You had internet access, so they trusted you, which was very big. They did massages, acupuncture, the debriefings, one-on-one counseling, and I also did the EMDR, or the eye movement desensitization and processing, to kind of work through the events that had occurred.
Yeah, let's if you would be willing to just spend a little time with EMDR, because you're not the first first responder that I've talked to about getting access to this form of treatment, which at the time it was explained to me had not received any form of FDA approval, and therefore was considered to be a controversial treatment of post-traumatic stress for military and first responders. So what's your take on the EMDR concept, and was it helpful for you?
Yeah, so I'd never heard of it before this. And actually a lot of stuff was brand new to me here. But I had never heard of that. Well, I take that back. When we were doing the intake and up to coming, they mentioned that was something that you could do. But other than that, I had no knowledge of it. So it did come through the military, as a lot of things in emergency services that come up through the military. It had proven to be very, very successful for them. And they have since, a lot of these treatment facilities and for emergency responders, therapists and such, are using this as a tool for emergency responders. Now, you had the option to use it or not to use it here. You didn't have to. But I figured, what's it going to hurt? So the way it was explained to me is that your brain is kind of like a filing cabinet. So everything we do throughout the day is filed away. So you don't forget it. It's just filed away and it's sitting there. Well, when somebody has or experiences a traumatic event, that event doesn't get filed anywhere. So that's why you're continuously re-experiencing, rethinking. You can't never get your mind off of it because it's just bouncing around in your mind constantly. It's not filed away. So this EMDR, the way it was explained to me and the process that we went through, they put you in a deep, almost like a hypnotic type state. And then they ask you questions and you relive the entire event. You're conscious, you remember everything. So it's kind of a strange feeling, I guess you could say. But we go through this, you go through the entire story, and then they'll ask you questions. And then when the event is over, sometimes one time is enough for somebody. Sometimes it takes several sessions of the EMDR. The hope and the plan is, and the success is very great, that is filed away in the filing cabinet. Not to where you forget it or that you forget the smells or the thoughts, but that you can live with it and live a progressive life.
It just doesn't as freely come into consciousness as when it's not filed away.
Correct. Yeah. It's medication free. It's all that stuff is just the processing. And if it doesn't work for somebody, that's okay. There's other things that are out there, but it's just another great tool that did work great for me. So I still remember everything about the events, very, very vividly. but I'm able to process and live with it now.
Mm-hmm. And when you went through EMDR, were you addressing just this incident from May 5th, or did you actually go through and address some other incidents from previous in your career?
Yeah, so they did the one on this event, and then they did some additional on the other events as well, that they would ask you about. So if somebody went in, I guess the one thing I would say is you have to be completely honest, not only with yourself, but with the processes that you're going through, because if you're not, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be completely open and honest, with yourself, number one, and then with the process.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you spend at that facility?
That facility there, I spent 14 days, and then we did much aftercare as well. So once I got home, I continued, but just at home, and I was still in contact with them too. They still call me to this day and check up with you and such like that.
Okay. And so when in the time frame of things, did you go there in 2014, the same year that the event had happened, or was it sometime after that?
Yeah, it was sometime after that. I actually went there in 2015.
Okay.
Late 2015, yeah.
Okay. And so you had been dealing with this for quite a while before you went to that facility.
Yes, sir. And again, I didn't have any. I had lots of people that reach out and want to help, but there wasn't in our area. There wasn't really much knowledge or education of things. It wasn't talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Since things have really blossomed, which is wonderful, in the state. Still has a long way to go, but we have to start somewhere. So, but then, yeah, I had nowhere to start that I knew of.
All right. So much like the event of May 5th, at the end of that story, I asked you to talk about the lessons learned that were your takeaways on how to be better and safer as a firefighter from that particular near-miss event. I'm going to categorize this that happened to you afterwards as yet another near-miss event. Sure. Because the circumstances were just slightly different. Your outcome could have been catastrophic.
Sure.
So from this near miss, what lessons would you want to share with others?
Sure. Yeah. Remember, it's so important for everybody to remember that you have a breaking point. Everybody has a breaking point. Hopefully you never reach it. Most probably never will reach their breaking point, but everybody has one. And this close call was my breaking point. All these other critical incidents through the years prior that had accumulated, and just been pushed down. And, I was using alcohol as my coping medicine, my coping mechanism. The key to all this is pre-education. We have to get our folks pre-educated, and constant or periodically continuing education on this stuff. It needs to become like it's second nature, where people are not hesitant to reach out for help. Confidentiality being the key of that. So, I already spoke that I didn't have any prior knowledge or education prior to this. But I didn't, and most are the same, but I didn't prior to this event have a true understanding of myself and how I would react in certain situations until that time occurred. For example, the PASS device. I trained and I teach it for years all across the state, but I didn't use it. It never crossed my mind. But it's impossible to put yourself in somebody else's shoes until you experience it. So, like the Monday morning quarterbacks, the stuff you see all over social media, in a way that is influencing the stigma around mental health because people are mental wellness, because people are being reluctant to speak up because they're afraid they're going to be blackballed or ridiculed. Now, that has gotten a lot better over the years, but we have to make people feel open to speak when they need assistance. Also, remembering what isn't a significant event to you may very well be to someone else. Let's say it's a run-of-the-mill CPR that we run every day, an elderly female. Well, to you, it may be just a normal call, but to the other person on the truck, it may remind them of their grandmother that passed away 2 weeks ago, or whatever. You don't know how things are going to affect somebody. One other thing to really keep in mind is one responder may respond positively to immediately discussing something after the fact. So let's say a close call, a critical incident, having a defusing or a debriefing immediately after, and there needs to be one, but everybody's not going to speak up in that time, and that's okay. I'm not one to speak up immediately. If we'd have had a defusing immediately after that fire, I probably wouldn't have spoke up, other than to tell what went on that day, not to get into my feelings or anything. So we can't force anybody to talk until they're ready. The first time somebody is pressured into talking, they're going to shut down and they're not going to talk at all. So it's very important that you let them know that you care, that you're there, you have resources, but don't push them. You'd be very surprised at who comes to you then a day, 2 weeks down the road to reach out for assistance.
Yeah. So out there is going to be somebody who's listening or watching to this and thinking they have a friend who needs help. What's the best approach for them to help somebody? I mean, you could say, if you want to talk, I'm here. But if they never call, but you still don't see them, get any better.
Sure.
What's the way to throw the life preserver and pull them in and help them if they're not really thinking or seeing that they need the help, or they're just flat out denying any help that someone would offer to them?
Sure. Yeah, I think with any of this type of stuff, confidentiality is number one. Somebody is not going to open up or ask for help or come to you unless the program, if you have such a program in place, or you as an individual, is not confidential. Now, there are certain times when you have to break that confidentiality, suicidal or danger to others, possible danger. Now, if that's the case and you're going to break it, you need to explain that to them. Look, I'm worried about you. We need to get you some help for the suicidal thoughts. But reaching out to them, again, it's kind of a fine line. It's because if we pressure somebody too much, they're going to shut down and they're not going to reach out and get that assistance. But you just knowing that you're there. So, for example, I may speak with somebody today. Oftentimes I get, well, let me think about it and I'll get back with you in a couple of days. But if I don't hear from them that day, that next day, instead of calling them, I may just send them a text. Say, hey, I'm just checking in with you. I'm seeing how you're doing, if you need anything. I find doing things like that, you build that relationship, and they know, hey, this guy really cares. This guy is really reaching out to me, and letting them know that it's okay not to be okay. Again, doing what we do is not normal. The statistics within emergency responders is just so scary. So every 1.4 days, statistically, we're losing an emergency responder to suicide. And my outlook on suicide has changed. These folks have just gotten to the bottom of the barrel where they feel that they are doing what's best for their family and for them. We got to get in front of these folks and offer them this help. Alcohol abuse. We watch TV or you read a magazine, you watch these TV shows. If they're not in the firehouse or in the police car, they're in a bar. It is common protocol that is what we do. We drink. Well, for the general public, alcohol abuse is about 7 to 9% of the general public has alcohol abuse. Emergency responders is 25 to 30%. So it's huge what we're doing. So just speaking with them, hey, do you think, what's going on with the alcohol, or inviting them to go do things that doesn't involve alcohol. showing them, hey, we can have fun without using the alcohol. Little things like that really, really goes places with somebody, really, really assists them.
So what are you doing these days to try to spread the word?
Well, I started after treatment and everything. I really didn't talk about things for some time. I was embarrassed, kind of ashamed of what I had caused for myself. And then whatever reason, things turned for me. And I got, if I could share my story with one person and it helps them, or prevents somebody from going down the road I did, or prevent their family from going through the hell that I put my family through, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. And so I started sharing my story. Anybody that would listen, I've got several articles that I have written on things, and I'm very, very honest about. I don't hide anything. I'm very honest about everything of my past, and the reason for that is if somebody can connect with one thing I say, they may say, hey, I thought I was alone in this. This guy went and hid behind his camper while camping with his family to drink, so he could feel normal. So I felt normal. I only felt normal when I was on the fire truck or when I was drinking. I didn't feel normal otherwise. So I started sharing my story. I was writing articles, and then I become involved in North Carolina peer support team, which online is North Carolina Firefighter peer support team, the way it was set up. But now we've taken the firefighter out because it's for all emergency services, fire, police, EMS, telecommunications. And I'm I'm on the leadership team with them. It goes across the state of North Carolina. We do pre-education. We'll go and talk with anybody that'll listen. We have a very aggressive website. We mirror a lot of what Illinois' peer support team does. And it is just to help and try and provide ongoing emotional wellness resources for emergency responders. We try to be a friend. We're totally confidential. We try to be a friend to that individual. Sometimes people just want to talk. They need somebody to talk to that they know is confidential. Or they may need resources for alcohol, or they may need resources for suicidal thoughts. So we have a 1-800, or it's not a 1-800, it is a toll-free number that is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it goes to us leadership staff. And we obtain whatever they need that they're looking for at that time.
Now, are you teaching classes then now too on this?
I am, yes. So we do with the pre-education part, signs and symptoms of critical incident stress, what some critical incidents may be, resources that are available to them. A lot of people don't realize the resources that are available for such things, free resources, 24 hours a day. Not only that, but we also look at the family portion of it. What do we need to do to support the families? It's statistically proven now that somebody that is living through these traumatic events going home, family members are developing post-traumatic stress just from living with this individual. So caring for these family members, also having clinicians and therapists building resource lists of those that have experience and are willing to work with emergency responders. So important.
Okay, if somebody wanted to locate you, to talk with you more about your experience, what happened, what advice you could offer to them, just being somebody that would be there to support them, or they want to host a class and have you come in and do it, how does somebody find you?
Okay, yeah, it's FP Hall, HALL 140 @gmail.
Is there anything that we, on either near miss event, the first or this second, is there anything that we need to say that I haven't been able to bring into the conversation with the questioning that I've asked? Have we left anything untouched?
I don't think so. It's been a good overall umbrella of everything. Of course, there's more things and more, like I go more in depth in certain things like recovery or spousal support. It just all comes full circle. Family involvement. Like I believe that families, and my children go with me to a lot of these classes I do, my family, because I think they need to know. They need to know why dad or mom doesn't acts this way or doesn't act this way, or why it's okay not to be okay. So, and I'm more than happy to share any resources or anything I have, programs that I've developed with anybody that's interested.
Okay. Well, Perry, thank you for the gift of your time and sharing both of those experiences. I'm sure it's going to resonate well with the viewers and the listeners to understand how you got into the position that you did, and then how you found a way to work through that, and how you're now inspired to help others. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you again to my guest, Greensboro firefighter Perry Hall. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-risk, high-consequence decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and their survival, and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that is to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present my programs in the virtual platform to groups ranging from 6 to about 400. Thanks to the organizations that have allowed me to offer this virtual training to their employees. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live program when the pandemic's over, just click the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage and I will give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we're sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 337 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Greensboro firefighter Perry Hall. Thank you to our amazing platinum sponsor for 6 years now, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, Gasaway Virtual Training. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.